All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Jonathan Leon, and I'm a computer science student at North American University. I have a background also in computer science, and I specialize in cybersecurity. In today's video, we're going to talk about the sleeping barber synchronization problem, which is a very classical situation when it comes to how the operating system handles all the applications, all the services continuously requesting resources. They request not only CPU, but they also request access to the memory RAM and also access to the hard disk. So how the operating system is going to be able to manage those requests. And there are basically two situations we want to talk about. Number one is the deadlock, when basically the one of the parts of one of the components of the process is waiting for the other component to wait to finish, right? And then each of the independent processes are waiting, and then at the end of the day, none of them can continue. That's a deadlock situation. And the second situation is when basically one of the processes is waiting for a long time. That's what we call the exacerbation problem, sorry. And at that point, basically the process cannot either continue or be completed because basically the operating system doesn't really assign any resource. And so we call that the exacerbation problem. Okay, so we're going to see how the sleeping barber is going to help us to illustrate that in our minds and how we can offer a solution from an operating system perspective. Okay, so the problem is a classical communication synchronization problem between multiple operating systems. It affects not only Windows and Linux, but it affects all the other operating systems we know so far. So this is the situation. Situation number one, there is a barber, and there are n number of chairs for waiting customers. Okay. If there are no customers, then the barber is going to sit down and he's going to enjoy a nap. He's going to sleep, as we can see in the picture. Number three, when a new customer arrives in the barber shop, and then the barber is sleeping, then the customer is going to wake up the barber and he's going to get the service. Okay, that is the condition number three. And condition number four, when a new customer arrives and then the barber is busy, then the customer is going to sit down on any of those available chairs, unless all the chairs are full. If all the chairs are full, he is going to leave. Okay. And basically that's going to repeat until there are no customers, and then the closing time comes, and then the barber just goes home. Okay, so that is the basic explanation of our process. So now let's navigate into the issues. Okay, so before we navigate into the issues, here is a flow chart that helps us understand. Basically, there is a start, there is a sleeping time if there are no customers, and if there are customers, he's going to be cutting hair, right? And when it comes to the closing time, basically, if there are no customers, there is a closing time, he is going to go home. And this is how we're going to finish our process. All right, so let's start talking about the first problem or issue we have, the deadlock problem. Basically, the deadlock is the customer arrives, the barber is busy because he's cutting hair for another customer. So what the number two customer, the second customer does, he goes to either the waiting room or he goes to the bathroom because he's waiting, or he goes out, right? Believing that the barber is busy, but he's still willing to wait and get his haircut. Unfortunately, in this problem, what happens is the first customer who was already getting his haircut goes out, he finishes his haircut, he goes out, and then now the barber is free, right? But in that case, the barber goes out and he checks the waiting room and there is no one waiting. So what he does is he goes back to his place and he takes a nap, he sleeps. At that time, the second customer who arrived before, he actually goes back to the waiting room to wait for the customer to finish, right? To wait for also the barber to finish with the customer one, but in reality, he already finished. So It's a deadlock problem because the barber is going to be sleeping, he's not busy, and the second customer is also waiting. So two of the processes are waiting for each other. So that creates what we call the deadlock situation. And at that time, basically the process, if we're talking about an application, basically it's going to crash because we're gonna have like a log situation, a timeout situation, right? Where there is no answer for this process to finish, okay? And the second problem is what we know as this starvation problem, right? So the starvation problem might happen when a customer who is waiting for a long time, we don't follow the order, and then the barber calls out a customer randomly. So in that case, let's say the customer number 2 arrived, but then instead of getting the haircut after the customer number 1, the customer number 3, the customer number 4, 5, 6, 7, they are getting attention, they're getting the needed resources, but the second customer waits for a long time until basically there is a timeout. He doesn't get any resources. So that's what we call the starvation problem. Okay, so going back very quick to how do we solve the deadlock problem, basically we use something that we call the semaphores. And the semaphores help us to control the flow of these processes, right? So in the first case, what we want to know, or what the customer number 2 that actually arrived at the store, he's gonna go out, he's gonna go to the waiting room, he's gonna go to the bathroom, he's gonna go outside, but there is a semaphore saying that he already arrived. So that semaphore is not gonna change. So whenever the barber is going to finish, the semaphore is gonna indicate that there is a customer waiting for him, and he's gonna wait until the customer 2 comes and then he gets the service. So with the idea of semaphores, we're gonna solve the first deadlock problem, okay? Because they're gonna help us to basically label whenever there is a process waiting for an answer, rather than just assuming that I already got the answer. And how do we solve the problem number 2? Well, the problem number 2, we are gonna use one of the methods used for synchronization. In this case, we can use the first in, first out situation. And what basically say, like, the first customer that arrives at the barbershop is going to actually get the service. So it's going to follow the order. And then the barber might serve them one at first come, first serve basis. So that's what we know as or how we can actually handle the starvation problem. Okay. And that's it. That's how we do it. That's the explanation. That's another here is how we actually implement that and when it comes to coding. But I think the main reason of this video is to illustrate this problem from graphical perspective. Okay, thank you so much. And I hope you guys understood correctly. Have a good one.